In today's Whiteboard Leadership moment, I want to take time and talk about a leadership lid that we all hit, and that's change management. Some of us are really good at changing, and some of us are change resistant. Some of us are averse, and some of us are addicted, and neither one is good. But we've got to figure out what's the best way to change based on the team that God's given us, based on the community that we live in, based on the congregation that we're leading. What is the best way to do change? The point is that every organization has to change. Even Jesus in Luke chapter 5 talked about the wine and the wineskins. He basically said no one likes change. He said it this way: no one after tasting the old wine wants the new, for they'll say the old is better. In a previous leadership whiteboard moment, we talked about the Rogers curve of innovation and how there are early adopters and innovators who are basically on time and on target with change. And then there's middle adopters who take a little bit of time, late adopters take a long time, and laggards who never change. And you've got all those people in your team, you've got all those people in your congregation. And so you have to figure out how to create an environment where change is more receptive, more received by the congregation. Here's a few thoughts about that. Before you make the change, discern the present, the price, and the process. The present, have a good understanding and define the present realities, what you have for you, what we don't have for you, what are the resources, who's on board, who's not on board. It's so important to recognize that. And then second, the process is designing the path. Then the price is what is going to have to change in order for you to make it that far. What are you going to lose? What are you going to gain? And then second, share the mission clearly, consistently, and compelling. A lot of times we get so caught up in the details of change that we forget how it ties into the bigger picture of the mission. The leader has to say, if we don't do this, here's what's going to happen, and if we do this, here's what I think God's going to do, and just say the mission, remind them of the vision over and over and over and over again. Don't have to say it the exact same way every time, but connect stories to it. Connect life change stories and other things to say it compellingly. People don't want to just be busy. They don't want to just do the right thing. They want to know that the right thing is resulting in some sort of impact in people's lives. Third, you've got to figure out this great balance of honoring the past and embracing the future. I've seen a whole lot of leaders that vilify the past in order to have a different future. I don't think you have to vilify the past. In fact, I think the better concept is this: we're standing on the shoulders of those who got us here. There's honor to the past. Yes, it was the right thing at the right time. Those innovations were effective 20 years ago, but every innovation has an expiration date, and so it's time to do something new. And here's what I think God is doing, and embrace that future that God has for you. Number 4 is this: distinguish mission from methods. I know a whole lot of people that hold on to the methods that got them there. I remember I was trained in evangelism explosion. It was door to door, and in some parts of the country, it's not just a bad response. It's difficult. They're gated communities, and so how do you do that? So you can actually be evangelistic without using EE. You can be evangelistic without using the one verse method. You can be evangelistic without doing altar calls. It's not about the method. It's about the mission of helping people meet, know, and follow Jesus. Make sure you can separate the two and be on mission. You marry the mission, but you only date the methods. Hope that makes sense to you. You can have a conversation about that one. Next, mobilize the influential and the early adopters. Remember the Rogers curve we talked about earlier, that the innovators and early adopters are the first ones to jump on board. And some of them are influential. Some of them are trusted. A lot of times the leaders are seen as way out there, but then there's other people that are early adopters that are seen as trustworthy and thoughtful, even middle adopters even more so because they're slow to change. Use the power of the crowd to drive things forward. Don't be the only spokesperson about these things. Make sure others who said, well, I wasn't sure in the beginning and now I'm on board and it sure is the right thing, and let them speak on your behalf and mobilize them in the ministry. And again, going back to these ideas of honoring the past, sympathize loss and yet celebrate gain. You can be compassionate and compelling. You can actually mourn with those who mourn, but you can rejoice with those who rejoice, and you can talk about those things. Make sure you have a good balance between sympathizing loss and celebrating gain. Sympathizing loss doesn't mean we're not going to move until you feel better. Sympathizing loss means, listen, I recognize that you've lost something, and that must be painful, and I will pray for you. But we've got to move forward because this is what God has us doing. And then finally, develop an environment of evaluation and improvement. I see a lot of churches these days that are putting in an evaluation process in their worship, in their ministry, in their team, and things like that. But there's no improvement plan. There's a lot of ideas out there, but there's no traction on those ideas. There's no actual improvement entity. Who are those implementers? Who are those ones who see where we are, see where we need to be, and know how to get there and get us there and help people get there? You've got to have those implementers in the life of the church. Listen, change is difficult, but it's the only way to grow. There is no growth without change, and so we all have to change. And so I hope this is a great conversation for you to have. This has been a Converge Whiteboard Leadership Moment. To learn more about Converge or to join us, check out converge.org.